Welcome to part 8 of a Stuart 10V steam engine rebuild. Now that the steam inlet and outlet are in the right place, I'm making and fitting the exhaust pipe adapter. The engine runs, but there is still a mechanical problem, which I will address in the next episode. The exhaust port hole is definitely in the wrong place, but at least it does connect to the correct area on the port face. As you can see, it's very close to the edge of the casting, but I will have to work with this. Here's a clip from the first run in the previous episode, and the engine seems to run okay. This engine will connect to a condenser, which in turn, using a piece of silicone rubber tubing, will connect to a pipe fitted to the chimney to carry away the steam. In order for this to work, I need to make an adapter to fit the silicone rubber tubing to the engine. For this, I'm using a small piece of hexagon brass, and I'm currently reducing the diameter of one end of the piece of brass so I can thread it 2BA. Here is a 2BA die that I'll be using. First, I need to turn down the piece of brass to a suitable diameter to take a 2BA thread, so the diameter must be exactly the right size. Here I'm checking it as I go using my micrometer. Once I reach the final diameter, it's time to drill a hole in the centre. And believe it or not, when making things like this, I have actually forgotten to drill a hole all the way through the part. But not today. The job begins by using a centre drill to make a hole exactly in the centre of the piece of bar. The next part of the job involves a decision. What is the final diameter required for the hole in the adapter? If it's too small, it's going to restrict the exhaust. If it's too big, it's going to make the threaded part very weak and the adapter could break. First of all, I tried a 1/8 of an inch diameter twist drill, but this looked too big. So I went 1 imperial size down to 7/64 of an inch, and this is okay. I'm going to drill the hole all the way through the part. In this clip, I'm fitting the die into the die holder. Always start by tightening the centre part. This will expand the die and cut a tighter thread. But don't over tighten it, otherwise the thread will be too big. As usual, I'm doing this by feel. Once I tighten the centre bolt, which is tapered, I then tighten the outer ones to hold the die in position, and here, using the tailstock chuck to keep everything straight. I cut a good quality 2BA thread on the end of the brass. The trouble is, it's not threaded right up to the hexagon part. And now it's top tip time. To make a die cut all the way up to the shoulder, or nearly all the way up to the shoulder, turn it around in the work once you've cut the main thread. This just nibbles away a little bit more thread and cuts the thread closer to the shoulder. Simple but effective. Another way of doing it is to use a very thin parting tool and trim the thread nearest to the shoulder to a smaller diameter, but I don't want to do that. I prefer the method I've just shown. This is a test fit. It fits perfectly. There's a bit of a gap, but I will be using some shim washers anyway. Now I've turned the part around in the chuck and I'm machining the other end. This needs to be turned to a suitable diameter to make a piece of silicone rubber tubing of the type that I'm going to use be a tight push fit on the end of the adapter. I don't need to machine any grooves for this part that goes inside the pipe, because the pipe is not going to be removed very often. I need the inside surface of the silicone rubber tubing to be in maximum contact with the fitting. This is about the right size because I want it to be a tight fit. I just need to round the end, and I'm using a file for this, followed by some wet or dry sandpaper to smooth it all out. This must not be rough, otherwise it will cut the silicone rubber tubing. Here I'm using my whetstone to clean up the hexagon part of the fitting. This does two things. It deburrs the part and also removes any minor marks made by the chuck. Normally I would use wet or dry sandpaper held on a flat surface, but this is so much better at doing the job. All I need to do now is apply a little Loctite 542. Here it is, a bit blurry but you can read it. Then after fitting a couple of shim washers, I tighten the part into the exhaust port, being very careful not to over tighten it. The exhaust hole in the fitting is just the right size, and by running the engine this confirms it. There is still a mechanical problem with this engine that I will address in the next episode, but it does run okay and it's very powerful. That is it for this episode. I'll leave the engine running until the end. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful. Please take the time to visit my main Steam Models website and click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists. And by doing that, you can find other videos that you may like to watch. And by using the playlists, you can actually watch the videos back to back.